Up your
Welcome
mind.
back. So on Twitter, which is now called X, I asked the peoples. I said, as I wrap up War Games 2004 with TVU Josh, I asked you, whose fault was it? 20% said equal parts Batman and Steph. 20% said mostly spoiler, and 60% said mostly Batman.
What was the percentage for spoiler again?
20,
And what was the percentage for Batman?
60.
Okay.
Would you agree with that breakdown?
I mean, I said as much in the uh part one that it's Batman. He made the war games.
Yeah, I know. Oh, well, I'm good because I'm biased. People know this about me, so I'm glad that other people are voicing what I think without me having to like create multiple fake accounts on X and
Oh my god.
and vote in, or like
One
pay my
account on
friends
X is
money.
hard enough,
Yeah, I
like,
know,
but like,
seriously. Yeah, should have paid a
I
bunch of
mean,
people to vote in.
if I built a killer robot and I
Kill
gave our
versus
naked friend
kill.
Donovan the keys
Yeah.
to if I gave him the keys to my apartment, I did not tell him about the killer robot, and I let Donovan in my apartment, and he saw the killer robot. He didn't know that it was going to kill people, and he thought that he could impress me by activating it. And I don't warn him, and he activates it, and that robot kills people. Who's responsible?
I would say you are.
Correct. I'm
Oh,
Batman, and that's because I built the robots.
you
Donovan is
built it
Stephanie.
and you did not warn him about it. Like,
Correct.
don't touch the killer robot. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And I gave him access to the killer robot.
You
Why do I
know,
have a killer robot?
I don't know, but part of me, like 50% of Stella was like, am I on drugs right now? And 50% of me was like, this is just another Josh tale. Let's try to follow it. Try to follow. I mean, it's 11:30 at night. I was just like, okay, it's gotta
It's
come. It's coming
11:30. Both
somewhere.
Stella and I have been up all day, so our
Yeah.
brain,
Yeah.
like, by the
It's
time that we deal with the epilogue, we're gonna be seeing like pink elephants
We're
being like,
not doing the epilogue. You need to
ah!
listen to me. We're not doing it.
By the time that we do the conclusion, we're gonna be seeing pink elephants and being
Yeah.
like, when Batman turned into the balloon, was that like when Harold, was right round?
Ooh, when Harold was right around.
I did love the shirt, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I I saw that on Cookie Book.
Gosh. Okay, well, we're at part 5, Flight Risk. Batman Gotham Knights 158. Writer AJ Lieberman, penciler Al Barrio Nuevo and Javier Pina, and inker Francis Portela, and colors Brad Anderson. Tarantula leads her gang, Los Araños, away from the police until they reach an abandoned building where Felix, one of the gang's lieutenants, decides to stop running and face the police. Tarantula tries to talk some sense into him, but the police catch up with them and start shooting at the gang, forcing them to get inside the abandoned building looking for shelter. Meanwhile, at the GCPD headquarters, the press and media are drowning Commissioner Akins with questions. That was very interesting about the current situation of the security in Gotham. However, since there hasn't been any single arrest or progress against the many gangsters in control of Gotham, Akins decides to leave the press conference and demand some results to all the members of the GCPD at all costs. He is then informed about the current situation with Las Arañas, and he sends a SWAT team to capture the small gang. As the SWAT team arrives, a bomb goes off just outside the building, hurting some of Tarantula's gang as well as some officers. The leader of the SWAT team calls for backup, and soon they start shooting at the windows of the building, killing one of Tarantula's men. They realize that the police aren't using rubber bullets anymore and that they are in a really dangerous situation. At that moment, Black Mask walks the empty and destroyed streets of Gotham along with Killer Croc and Scarecrow. Black Mask, it's like a date. Black Mask reveals to them that his plan is to take control of the entire city, but first he commands them to gather every person they can and take them to the north side of the city, where he knows about a location that would grant him total control. Again, I don't understand his speech in the amphitheater saying, I don't need you, I'll build a new army, when he just gathers that same army later on. Back in the abandoned building, the GCPD uses a rocket launcher and shoots the building, destroying the main entrance and causing some of the structure of the building to collapse. Felix falls down and Tarantula tries to help him. A police helicopter hovers over the hole left by the rocket and they spot Tarantula, who is trying to call Batman using the intercom, which of course she drops. The sniper shoots, causes the radio to drop to the ground. Tarantula jumps to reach the radio just as a large number of police officers enter the building. Tarantula takes the radio and climbs to upper floors as the police shoot at her relentlessly. Batman is back on Orpheus's is back in Orpheus's office looking for clues about Spoiler's location and thinking about a way to stop the war that he designed. Oracle contacts Batman and tells her to check every surveillance camera in the city and find Spoiler. Oracle finds her and notices that she doesn't look good. Wow, that's the understatement of the year. Batman gets to her location and takes Spoiler, who is bloody, wounded, and completely wasted, into his arms, where her last words before passing out are, "I just wanted to help." Tarantula calls again for Batman while she leads the gang to the rooftop, but instead of Batman, it is Oracle who answers her. Tarantula explains the situation to Oracle, and she tells her that Batman is busy at the moment. Meanwhile, Commissioner Akins is told about the progress in the capture of Tarantula and the gang Las Arañas, and his desire to take control of the city takes him over as he sends the entire police department to deal with the situation. Batman takes Stephanie to Leslie Tompkins' clinic and asks her to save the young girl. Leslie admits that it might be hard to do since Spoiler is badly injured. Stephanie wakes up and asks about Orpheus, and Batman tells her that he is dead. She feels guilty for everything that has happened, and Batman admits that everything that has happened is nobody's fault but his. At that moment, Oracle contacts Batman. Look at that, owning it. Contacts
That
Batman
man
and
agrees with our
yeah,
third poll.
I can't believe it, and tells her that Tarantula needs a lot of help since she and her gang are completely surrounded by the entire GCPD. Can you tell me whether this moment when Batman brings Stephanie into Leslie's clinic, that Leslie knew she was going to kill her?
Oh, you know about that.
I do know it's Leslie,
Okay. I didn't know that you knew about
but I
that.
don't know. I don't want details.
Okay.
But do you
The
think
it
at this
was
moment she
yes,
knew?
because there is more details. Like there is more to the story, so there's still going to be new stuff that you find out on Warcraft.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that kind of surprised me when we were reading Act One or Two, because there's a scene in Act One or Two where Leslie is doing something,
Okay.
and you don't find out why she was doing it until
The baby thing, yeah.
the baby thing. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, because that was just an on set that was just like a setup for war crimes at the time. You find out what she was doing in war crimes, and I'm like, wait, how did she know that she was going to kill Stephanie even back then? Because, like, huh? Or was she just counting on Stephanie to die? So,
Yeah.
yes, Leslie knew based on stuff that you're going to find out in war crimes. Okay, I did not know that that was. When did you find out about that? Because you gave me the impression that you didn't know based on some of your notes and things.
I don't I think just people always with like Steph being killed, people will follow up immediately with Leslie killed her.
Okay,
And
yeah,
that's very bad. But I just wonder, like, so she, because it makes Leslie out, I mean, to be really bad. If she is looking at Steph, she's coming in,
yep.
she's thinking to herself, I can fix her, but she's now saying this lie like she might not make it because she's gonna kill her. So that's what I was wondering. If is it that bad? Or does she just like doesn't tend as well as she
You'll
could have
find out
tended?
more. Like there's some retcons wrapped up in retcons wrapped up in retcons, but like if we're to go by like what she says in war crimes, then this was planned before Stephanie even came in somehow, because
Yeah.
Leslie was looking at the baby names, and you find out what the significance
Yeah,
of the
because I don't
baby.
know that, so don't spoil that. Yeah.
Obviously you know that it has something to do with Stephanie's baby. You
That's
know
what I
that
thought.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. I mean, you'd have to. Obviously, you know that, but you don't know how that connects. So when I
No.
saw that, I was very confused in Act One or Two, and I did not know how to articulate that because I was like, huh. Because this is my first time reading it since I've read War
Sure.
Crimes, where like they did all that.
You can look back,
So
yeah, in
yeah,
retrospect. Okay. I just wondered like how bad is this going in?
I mean,
Yeah.
it ruins Leslie Tompkins' character until they. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, you know it's undone because Stephanie's alive now, and Leslie Tompkins is friends with the Bat family again now. So
Yeah. The Stephanie thing, like that she's missing and when people know she's missing and the action to find her is, I think this is also an inconsistency because remember, Batman found a purple cloth
Yeah,
and
he and Black Mask were talking about it,
yes,
and
and she's like, and he said, no, I'm sure she's still alive. But I'm confused. I guess he just had better things to do.
was
So
that
he
in the
went off.
same setting? Was that in the same
That was in
place?
his office. That
Yeah,
was in
so he's like,
Orpheus's like place of residence. Yeah, so he had to
so
go
so
back to find it.
so he finds out again, like, oh, spoiler was here, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, we knew this in the
And
like
yeah.
two.
And why wouldn't he have asked Oracle to look for her then?
I think he's trying to keep the Stephanie thing to as few people as possible.
Okay. That's interesting.
Because you notice, like, he doesn't tell a lot of people that it was Stephanie that did the war game. He like tells like his allies it was him.
True. Yeah.
He has not told everyone that it's Steph. I think he's trying to keep a lot of the Stephanie stuff close to the chest.
Um, did I mean I said geez. Did Batman care for Orpheus any more than just a pawn in his plan? I'm trying to find the quotes and how he talks about it. How did I
If
get
he,
here? Da, 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 da. I caused this. Oh yeah. Now he's dead. The one person I needed to make the plan work is gone. Orpheus. Everything starts with Orpheus. And everything was going to end with him. Without him, I have nothing. I mean, it's like, do you care
yeah,
about the man or is it just what the man can do for you? What do you
this
think?
was this was one of the things that wasn't executed well. Yeah, because like it's is Batman sad about Orpheus? I'd like to think that he is, but we're not seeing those thoughts. And even like a line of dialogue from Oracle, like, "Oh, you know you're being too driven right now. I think that you're taking Orpheus. I think that you need to deal with Orpheus's death, and that's why you're acting that." Like even a line like that would have gone a long way. But yeah, they kill like one of the only people of color in the Bat family at this time, and his death is immediately overshadowed by Stephanie, who her death was like another quagmire of its own. So it's like let me count the ways, but
Yeah.
yes, this is another thing where number one, like a more thorough editor could have like caught the tracking Stephanie's like in Orpheus's office, like two separate acts, like could have caught, and also somebody sitting down saying we should really have Batman being upset about Orpheus's death. And even like after all this is said and done, like there's not really a lot of moments to grieve for Orpheus. Like it's all
Yeah.
about Stephanie, it's all about like the gang war, it's
Yeah.
all about it's a really sad end for the character.
For sure. Yeah. Just discarded there. Yeah, it just doesn't seem like Batman thinks of him as a person. It's just like how can I use him? Which I mean, Batman does use people. I mean, this is something that
Yeah.
Cass has brought up to him recently. Um, I don't know if this is the worst example of it, but it's pretty darn bad.
It, there should have been like something like some sort of course correction like a few issues later of Batman visiting Orpheus. I don't know if Orpheus has a family, but like visiting like wherever his family is in the world, if he has like a cousin or something, or like
Yeah.
share or like talking about Orpheus in the Batcave, like now that the gang war's over, let's take a moment to remember the man who like gave his life as he was like slack killed from like behind.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I will say that this is very, I mean, the scenes with Batman and stuff are very touching. I mean, the fact that he's like hugging her, which I feel like is the first time that he's ever hugged Stephanie because
I
he's hugged
put
Cass, but
Yeah, I put in my notes almost perfect,
yeah. Yeah.
almost perfect, because he says almost everything that he needs to be saying to her, which is it's not your fault, it's
Yeah.
not this. Like the one word that he doesn't say is sorry.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. And I've
uh,
yeah, I've talked a lot probably on this podcast and other things just about apologies and things like that.
yeah,
But what do you think about this quote though, Stephanie? Everything you've done, everything you've been through, the city owes you, and so do I.
I think it's what she needed to hear in that moment, and I think maybe he meant, I think it's clumsily worded in the context of the situation that they're in, yes, because like the war games, but
Yeah, I know.
I think he just means like her entire time as Spoiler and Robin, like what she's done like for the city in all that time. He's
Okay.
like,
Okay.
that's his way of saying like, you have been of value to the city and my mission,
Yeah.
because she's beating herself up like, and she did the war games because she thought that like she had to
Yeah.
prove herself. And it's not him saying you don't need to prove yourself, you already did, but it's like, it's saying it in so many words, like the city owes you and so do I. He's saying what he should have said to her in the Batcave all those months ago, and there never would have been a war games.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's almost perfect.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
quite there, but it's like, it's a lot better choice of words than what he's been saying the Barbara and like
Sure.
Friends
Yeah. I
recently.
know. Yeah. Yeah, I put kind of tongue in cheek. I mean, the city does owe her, but not in a good way for all of that went down. Also, this guy at hospitals. I mean, she clearly has a head injury, and he's like putting his hand on her injured head.
He didn't
I
have a
mean,
Joker card.
this
He
guy.
had to
Yeah, I
do
know.
something.
Let me drop that right, or something from Clue Master or something. Do you feel like Commissioner Akins is somewhat corrupt and maybe or unethical? Maybe there's another term that you'd like to use, in that he's
the
more concerned about public opinion and getting a win in any way necessary.
I think the book is playing it that way because, like, as a reader, you don't want like Batman's opponents to seem like they're making too much sense, because you really can't be rooting against Batman.
Yeah.
And they later write him off, Commissioner Akins, like after the 1 year later time skip, like they say, like, oh, there was corruption and Commissioner Akins, so he's gone now, and now Gordon's back. Right. So,
Okay.
but they don't really go into detail of like what that was. Um, so like, yeah, he has his failings, I'm sure, but he made a whole lot of sense in the first two acts of the story. I'll say
Yeah, I
that
know.
much.
Yeah, I know. And then he just went to
He
the
made more
extreme.
sense than the guy saying, "All right, I'm going to need you 50 cops to arrest those 400 men inside that Coliseum.
Yeah.
Just wait for my signal. I'm not going to tell you what the signal is, but just wait for it."
And now kill anyone with a mask.
And I know that you're used to using bullets because you're cops and you're legally allowed to do that and you're trained for it, but you're going to use rubber bullets this time. Well, they're using real ones. And there's 400 of them and 50 of you. I count on you. But remember, wait for my signal. Signal that I'm not going to tell you what it is. Also, I screwed this plan up. That's not my guy. I just walked you all into a trap. But you should listen to me and not your commissioner.
You should have written that. Anything else on part 5?
Uh,
Okay. Part 6, Ground Zero, Batgirl 57. Writer Dylan Harks, penciler Mike Huddleston, inker Jesse Delberdang, colorist Jason Wright. Arturo Rodriguez reports on the gang war live in the streets for WBGK Action News with his cameraman Charlie. May he rest in peace. The anchor Chet asks him questions, and Arturo says that it has developed into a violent free for all. Rodriguez announces that this is the fault of Batman, who is now doing more harm than good. Oracle tells Batgirl that Onyx needs her help. Oracle asks if Batgirl has noticed any kind of pattern to the random gang violence, which is starting to feel more disciplined. Onyx has been captured by henchmen working for Killer Croc. Their leader, Jaws, is beating her for information about Croc's disappearance. Onyx manages to break free and fight her captors again, but they subdue her with a baseball bat to the head. Surprised she survived that, honestly. They decide to ask her where Batman is instead. Batgirl arrives and takes on the entire gang single-handedly. Jaws puts a gun to Onyx's head, but Onyx kicks him and takes down the guards holding her. Batgirl uses a batarang to stop Jaws pulling the trigger, and Onyx punches him out. Onyx warns Batgirl that something has changed and somebody is taking control of the situation. The gangs begin working together. Gangsters in the Escobedo cartel, Ghost Dragons, and Odessa Mob all respond to orders telling them to meet up at Gotham Central. I don't know why they're listening, but let's just go along with it. They worry that it might be a trap, but they have nothing to lose. This is just like the 12 Cent adventures that are like all gathering. Are like, well, let's gather. It'll be
yeah.
great. There is a massive shootout with the police, and the gangsters force the police to retreat. Black Mask casually strolls through the chaos until he spots Arturo Rodriguez. Black Mask tells Rodriguez that he is a fan of his work and offers to give them an exclusive scoop. Arturo and Charlie are terrified, but they go along with it because they don't have a choice. Black Mask announces on live television that he is the undisputed absolute crime lord of Gotham City. He declares that Batman is a public menace and a lawbreaker, equally as bad as the city's criminals. Black Mask says that he has summoned the entire criminal population of Gotham to witness the end of an era as Batman falls and Black Mask rises. He leads Arturo and Charlie to Gotham Clock Tower, which he mistakenly believes to be the Batcave. Oracle realizes that, they're right outside her lair and are about to discover her. Horrified. Okay. Oh boy. Let's see here. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's like so on a broken record. Just that, in part 1, Black Mask said he was going to gather a new army, but why is he continuing to work with the gangs that were already assembled? I don't know that we have an answer. Does this prove Batman's plan is right, that it would work? It's just now Black Mask instead of Orpheus?
No, this plan is doomed. Like,
but
he
Black
thought that the
Mask
cops
has united the gangs.
He thought that the cops were going to arrest them in the Coliseum. That was never going to work.
But Black Mask has united the gangs. That was Batman's plan all along. Unite them under one person.
Okay, and then what do? What's the next part of that plan, Batman? Just have Orpheus be crime. I mean,
I don't know. I don't know what the second part was.
No. This is. I am not justifying this stupid bleep plan.
Beep. I should. Hopefully, I can remember where your bleeps are and put in real.
I'm bleeping myself. So like,
I know, self bleeped. Well, okay. I wondered if the plan worked because Black Mask, but okay.
If you want to justify Batgirl,
I don't want to.
Plan that involved a school shooting and like and like a power outage at like the Coliseum. Like, what in the world?
I don't know.
And like multiple allies of his dying. I mean, that wasn't part of the plan, but like,
I would like to see since there's not going to be an Orpheus Onyx team up, a Batgirl Onyx team up limited series. Is this possible?
Maybe like 15 years. Actually, probably not even 15 years ago, because of like, the way that like a series about 2 women, like, you could barely get a series about 1. I mean, yes, we have Birds of Prey, but that's like, it's almost like they feel like, well, we already gave you Birds of Prey. Why do you need another one? Like, just considering
don't ask for too much.
That many girls, like, like, whoa, what do you think this is?
Estrogen circus. I don't know. And final question for me.
To be fair, I don't know how many female-led series there were at DC back then versus now.
Was Manhunter going on at this time?
I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
Wasn't that in the early 2000s? How did he find the clock tower? Question mark.
Okay. So,
do you think it's Steph under torture?
No.
Oh, you have an answer.
Yeah, I have an answer. That
you have an answer that was on the page and I missed it.
It was on the page and you forgot about it, and I forgot about it too until I reread it.
Okay, yes, please.
Like, because I forgot. Remember, Hush had information for him about the location of the Batcave. That's what this was.
How does Hush know about the clock tower, not the Batcave? Or does he know about the Batcave but wants to say that for himself and so gives him
I'm wondering, location? Like, I asked myself that question following up. I'm like, maybe like Hush doesn't know that the because it's not like Hush was like down in there, but also he had a tracker in Batman's skull. So like he must have known that the Batcave existed. I think it's he wanted to say that and he wanted to cause chaos and mess with Batman.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I guess if you he had the tracker in Batman's skull, and he had and Harold, not Harold, your friend from
not Right Round, but Harold the worker.
Yeah, right. Like he had Harold as his mole on the inside, so Harold knew everything.
Okay. Interesting.
So like he would have so he definitely knew about the Batcave because of Harold. Like and Harold probably told him about the clock tower, and even if he didn't know about the clock tower. If you know that Barbara Gordon is Oracle, like her address and where her fake business is all a matter of public record. So
so these are all coming out in a month. These acts are like basically we are recording these episodes of this podcast as if almost real time, right? Like
Yeah.
all the books for 1 month. But we have forgotten these details. I mean, is there a fault? Is it like is the reader's fault that they're not catching on these details, or the details too minor? Um
I think
that
it's because of the way that we consume these comics now versus how we would have consumed them in 2004.
That's interesting.
Because
How would you say we're consuming them now versus then?
we're reading. I mean, I don't know how you're reading them, but I'm doing each act in one sitting. And when you do
Yeah.
an act in one sitting, you leave details as opposed to if you're reading this week to week and waiting like a month and week to week and stuff like
I
that.
would say I would lose more details reading it back in 2004
So this is
because there'd be so much a gap of time.
this is a conversation I've had with people about like binge TV culture that like when I like watch a Netflix show, like Orange is the New Black or something, because there's like a year between seasons, you like watch the season for like a week and you live in it during that week. But then like you have 11 months where like you're not living in it in your day-to-day head, you're not doing theory. So you forget a lot of subplots when the series comes back and they like slowly come back to you. Whereas like a show that I used to watch week to week, which would have been like Smallville, because you're watching it week to week, you're living with the show for like 10 months, like a year or 9 months, whatever it is. And you're sharing theories with other people and stuff like that. And that kind of keeps it fresher in your head. I think we're doing this more like binge TV, where we're doing it in like one sitting and then you and I are also doing like a gazillion different things. Now, and granted, this is like a mega crossover with like a lot of threads going at once.
Yeah.
And Hush was barely in this thing. I did not remember Hush because when you said, "Oh, did Hush have a role in this?" and I said, "I don't think so," because I didn't even remember Hush being in this until I reread it. And the reason why I didn't remember him being in this is because he literally barely showed up.
Yeah.
He just like showed up because it was Gotham Knights and he was in Gotham Knights and he gave that information to Black Mask. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. Well, fool on me for not knowing.
No, I
Any
mean
Yeah.
it's easy to admit because I forgot about Hush even being in this. So,
Yeah. Anything else on part 6?
one note I had is I love the opening splash page, and another thing that I like is I love the cliffhanger of like they found the clock tower and I think it's the back. Like I thought that that was a
With
cool
the
like.
TV? This splash page?
And
Wait.
there's like a splash page at the beginning of Batgirl, is there not?
Um that was with the TVs?
No, like keep going because you know sometimes there's like an intro. Yeah, I think that's the one I liked. I don't know. Maybe I meant something else, but I remember I put either way. I do love the end of the issue, finding like we found the Batcave and it's the like that's like a real like this is raising the stakes. This is gonna have consequences like ending that I thought was cool. And I know that Oracle's gonna warn Batman and he's going to let her finish her sentence and immediately like react. Oh, poor
Yeah.
Oracle.
Poor Oracle indeed. Mein gut. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, seriously. Talk about in men interrupting women. We'll talk about that. Uh okay, so then part 7, multiple fronts, Catwoman 36, writer Ed Brubaker, penciler Paul Gulacy, inker Jimmy Palmiotti, colors Laurie Cronenberg. Catwoman runs across Gotham City looking for a spoiler under Batman's instructions. Don't understand. She realizes that the situation is only worsening by the minute as the criminals take control of the city, and now the police are also attacking vigilantes. However, when she reaches the docks, she finds a dozen dead cops and Zeiss standing among them. Batman is on his way to help Tarantula, and he contacts Commissioner Akins to tell him to call his men off and stop chasing Tarantula and her people. Akins replies that he's not taking orders from him anymore. I mean, he shouldn't at any point, and that if he tries to interfere in the capture of Tarantula, he will have his men shoot Batman as well. Meanwhile, Black Mass has gathered all the Gotham underworld around the Gotham Clock Tower, claiming that it is Batman's secret lair, the Batcave. Reporter Arturo Rodriguez is broadcasting the events live, and Black Mass forces him to go all the way with him. Inside the tower, Oracle transfers all her data into a satellite and empties her record files from her main system. She realizes that all the criminals in Gotham are storming her headquarters, and when some of them get inside, Oracle activates all the traps in the place, stalling most of the thugs. Black Mass knew that the place would be heavily guarded, and he allowed the lesser criminals to go first. The red shirts, is that what they call them in Star Trek? After the first set of traps are discovered, Black Mass steps inside along with Rodriguez, his cameraman, and Scarecrow. At that moment, Catwoman is fighting Zeiss for the second time, and she is feeling more confident this time than she was on their previous encounter. The match is fairly even, and both opponents land perfect hits to the other. Just then, Batman arrives at Tarantula's location and finds that she and her gang are trapped in the rooftop, surrounded by almost the entire GCPD. Oracle contacts Batman and tries to tell him about her dire situation, but he's too busy to listen. Batman uses the bat rope to take down one of the helicopter's lights, and he reaches Tarantula's location, after which he uses some smoke pellets to create a distraction that allows them to move from the spotlight. As more police arrive at the scene, Batman asks Oracle for some schematics of the place, but she's completely unable to help. And when she tries to explain why, Batman is forced to cut communication when several armed officers try to get on the rooftop. Batman comes up with a plan and leads Tarantula and her gang through an escape route. During these moments, Black Mass keeps getting deeper into the tower, and after a few minutes, the police realizes that Batman, Tarantula, and the gang have escaped the place. Catwoman and Zeiss keep fighting relentlessly, and after a while, Zeiss delivers a hard elbow hit to her face, taking her down. Catwoman then uses a flash grenade that Batman gave her in case she faced Zeiss again. Oh, how convenient. The grenade causes Zeiss's vision to go blurry, and without his special ability, he is defenseless against Catwoman's attacks. Black Mass reaches the last defense mechanism of the tower, which consists of a chamber full of lasers. Black Mass thinks that the only solution is to overload the system, and he grabs Scarecrow and tosses him into the lasers. I don't know
That was one of
how
my
he's
favorite
not.
parts of the issue.
How is he not like chopped to pieces? But he's burned in the
Well,
process.
because Barbara's not trying to murder people.
That's true, I suppose. But it does damage the system enough to walk past that chamber. Black Mass then takes the camera from the cameraman and tells Rodriguez to stay out as he's going in to find out for himself what is inside the Batcave. Oracle tries to keep her defenses up, but the overload damages the system and her whole power is down, leaving her completely unprotected. At that moment, Black Mass enters the main room, finds her and mocks her presence, calling her a quote-unquote bat secretary. Catwoman finally defeats and chains Zeiss in the docks, or to the docks. She feels good after the battle and admits that Zeiss is a tough opponent. Catwoman then calls Oracle to get some police at the docks to take away Zeiss for good, but when there is no reply, Catwoman realizes that something is very, very wrong. Batman, Tarantula, and her gang get out to the main street through the sewer system, far away from the danger zone. Batman commands Tarantula to lead her gang away and keep them safe. However, he is distracted when he notices Black Mask on a nearby television, while the criminal is broadcasting himself live from what he calls the Batcave. Okay. Question number 1. Why is Catwoman looking for spoiler when she's already been found?
Catwoman didn't read the rest of Act 3.
Okay.
I don't know how much of that silence is going to be there in the final thing, but like there was just like a beat of Stella and I staring at each other. It's like, well,
yeah, I
Catwoman
know. Other guests have experienced me just staring at them in displeasure. Huh?
How would she know? Like, Batman didn't tell her.
But Batman told her to look for spoiler.
Yeah, but he didn't tell her that he's found. He didn't tell her.
Is this Batman or is this writing inconsistency?
Both. Stella's shaking to the people listening.
I'm shaking my head. It reminds me of
Stella is shaking her head.
A classic line from, I believe, Justice League Unlimited. I think it was Supergirl said to Superman, like, does it ever chafe straddling both sides of that fence like you do? I think it was like the first episode with
whatever.
And so I ask you that. Do you have some shaping issues because of the fence that you're straddling?
No, I think that, like I said, like Batman didn't tell. Like, is that inconsistent writing? Yes, it is, but it's also in character for Batman to be like, go ahead, find her, and then Batman and then Catwoman to look, and Batman to not be like, oh yeah, we found her like 6 hours ago.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Leslie's currently like lighting her body on fire right now. She'll be fine. Like,
okay, so the big point of contention here is, why doesn't Batman let Barbara finish speaking?
The in story the okay, so the real world explanation is for drama, to like, to like to pad this story out, to like build suspense. The real in universe reason is it's because Batman is arrogant and he thinks he knows best, and it's consistent with everything that's happened like in war games so far.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't know why she couldn't just like also call. Well, she can't call Nightwing. He's like bleeding out in like
Yeah.
Wayne Manor. But like any of the other people that would have like let her finish. But like, because as we see in the next part, the second that Batman finds out, he's like, okay, I need everyone like to get over here like right now.
What do you do in this? So, let's take a time out from the comics. And in real world, I do get interrupted a lot. Okay. Our naked friend, he interrupts me. He's trying to be better. He knows this, so that I'm throwing him on their bus only partially. Sometimes Tom interrupts me on required reading. He also knows this. He's also getting better. And so now I've just like in the past year or so, I continue to talk. I continue to talk over them, and like then and even you and I have like had some overlapping things in this
And
episode.
that's just podcasts in general
Yeah, it's
sometimes.
very true, very true. It's not like any, they're being intentionally rude or
Yeah.
anything. But I mean, should she have just like yelled at him and kept going?
With a situation this dire, yes.
Okay.
I would say, because this was dire.
Yeah.
And once Batman found out about it, he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we all got to get here right now." So like, yeah, this was a priority.
Interesting.
I
It's
mean,
funny. Yeah.
and obviously, like, this is the DC universe, so
Yeah.
we have to ignore the fact, because like the story would have no drama if you can just call the Flash or Superman to like get there in 2 seconds. But like realistically, Barbara can call the Flash or Superman, but we have to like pretend that she can't because this is a Batman family crossover.
Yeah.
I mean, and we could say that Superman's away on a space mission and that the Flash is on a mission as well. So like,
Yeah.
there's reasons. Like, she has other people she could call. Like the whole
Of
DC
course.
universe will show
Yeah,
up for her.
absolutely. Yeah. But I think a lot of them also know. Sorry about that. I think a lot of them also know that it's Batman City, and so they kind of stay away from it because they don't want to.
Well, and the
Don't
problem
want to
is it
go
would make the
against him.
situation worse because like, well, okay, it would save Barbara, but like this guy says that he's found the Batcave. So if like Superman and the Flash immediately show up, then people watching on TV are going to be like, "Oh, there might be something to this. Like this might be an important place like for superheroes."
Yeah. It's funny because I just started a romance book, and so like this a roommate was saying to his roommate, oh, my twin, and then the other room was like, you have a twin? I didn't know about that. And then she later finds out that it was a sister. So it's like very dramatic. So it just reminds me of this. Okay. She's like, you didn't tell me. And then he said, that's why I told you not to interrupt anyone. Okay.
Ooh.
Well, I find that final scene actually very scary, that Black Mask is in front of Barbara.
Considering, and I it didn't strike me as scary at the time because like as a reader, I didn't feel like Barbara was in danger, but like now in the context of like, yeah, he's been making misogynistic comments this whole time, and what he did to Stephanie, I could see how. And then when you remember the killing joke, it's like, yeah, this is very uncomfortable.
Trying to pull up the. Is it this one? Yeah. Who the hell are you supposed to be, girl? The Bat Secretary? Is
I'm
that
the
it?
girl from Ghostbusters,
Yeah.
the one that answers the phone like
Yeah.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah. There it is. No more comments, I think, for me. Anything else for you on part 7?
I believe we covered it all.
Okay.
Which is, let's see, I put, oh yeah, the only thing I put was like throwing Scarecrow, which I thought was funny. Like, and that made me laugh.
Yeah, it's just like, so just pick him up. Well, he had to
It
use all the
reminds me of
fodder he had to.
it reminds me of Harley Quinn season 1 at the very end, like Joker like just kills Scarecrow randomly because he's like mad at him. Well, because Scarecrow unmasks Batman, and it like gets Joker mad because like he's like, no, I didn't want to know who he was, and he just immediately like puts acid on Scarecrow's skull, and like Scarecrow like instantly dies. And you've probably seen the clip because everyone shared it on Twitter. Because then like Joker goes up to Bruce Wayne and he says, "Wayne Tech promised me an electric car. I put down a deposit years ago. Where's my electric car, Bruce?"
Oh gosh. Yeah. I heard from the good professor that the first season or the first episode of this new season, which I haven't seen, so don't spoil it. Very funny Nightwing scene.
Nightwing's butt is like a reoccurring like plot thread this entire. You get a lot of Nightwing butt.
That's what I love to hear. That's what I love to hear.
Yeah, if you ever wind up watching, because you're like this is season 4 now. Like,
I'm caught up.
oh, you are?
Yeah, remember oh my gosh. We even talked about the Valentine's Day episode where I was like, Bane reminds me of me. And then you're like, I hope he doesn't remind you of you too much because of what Bane does in the Valentine's Day episode.
Yeah.
But it's what he was like complaining about people's poor grammar on dating apps. I'm like, yeah, I get that. Like, why do people say anyways? Anyway.
I like it when he says like his turn ons, like the later seasons of The Office, and Harley's like, "Oh, what was with that show?" Like, he likes the episode. Oh, it was worse than this Valentine's Day where I missed The Office, where Jim went to Tallahassee to see Robert California.
Oh gosh, so yes, I can't wait for that.
It's been an interesting new season with and a lot of Nightwing, but a lot of Nightwing butt.
Can't wait. Can't wait. Warming my hands up.
Just listening to the audio podcast and not watching the video, you are missing a lot.
Yeah, I know, seriously.
What Stella just did. I'm not even gonna narrate it. Like,
yeah.
like
you'll just have to wonder.
Yeah, you all just have to go to YouTube. Like, people are writing down their timestamps right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, part 8, no going back. For some reason, the synopsis is like 3 pages long. So,
oh my gosh.
And I feel like not that much happened, but boy, I'll speed through it. Okay. No going back. Batman 633, writer Bill Willingham, penciler Kinson Lowe, inkers Aaron Soud, Rodney Ramos, and Adam DeCracker, or Cracker. Cracker? I don't know. And colorist Tony Avina. Black Mask continues his live broadcast from inside the Gotham clock tower, and the whole city is watching. He shows the rest of the world that he has invaded and taken control of the Batcave, though he is absolutely incorrect, of course. Nobody dares to tell him the truth. He shows on camera that he and several other crooks working for him are holding Barbara Gordon, who keeps a defiant attitude towards them, as a hostage, and he sends a message to Batman challenging him to come and save the girl, or otherwise he will kill her. Batman was watching the message after rescuing the gang Las Arañas, and he calls the Batmobile to his location and then proceeds to call all the members of the team and summons them to Oracle's whereabouts. When the vehicle arrives, Batman gets inside and tells Tarantula to come with him, and they travel fast towards the meeting point. A few minutes later, the GCPD has established a perimeter around the clock tower, and several other civil servants are within the boundaries, along with reporters and onlookers. The members of the GCPD are unsure how to proceed, and they know that the vigilantes will appear anytime soon. The leader of the police force tells them that they have to target only the members of the organized crime. However, this changes soon after a phone call by Akins, who gives the order to arrest all the criminals and vigilantes alike and authorizes GCPD to use deadly force if necessary. On a nearby rooftop, Robin, Onyx, Batgirl, Catwoman are joined by Batman and Tarantula. Batman gives them instructions to let the police take care of all the regular criminals and take down any metahuman or supercriminal that starts causing trouble. Meanwhile, Batman takes a secret route into the Gotham Clock Tower. At that moment, our fellow reporter, Arturo Rodriguez, starts walking towards the exit of the clock tower, and on his way, he comes by the unconscious bodies of the criminals that Black Bass gathered as part of his master plan. Rodriguez manages to get outside, and he tells the police officers that his cameraman Charlie, may he rest in peace, is still inside, and the officers tell him that they're trying their best to rescue him. Minutes later, Black Mass asks Charlie, the cameraman, if the camera is recording automatically or if it needs him to make it work, and Charlie tells Black Mass, foolishly, that the camera is set to record automatically, and Black Mass shoots him in the head, killing him since he doesn't need him anymore. Using Charlie's body as a tripod, Black Mass keeps his live broadcast going on, and he sends all of his henchmen to deal with any possible intruder that might try and stop his plan. Black Mass then turns his attention on Barbara and approaches her in a threatening way until a big explosion tears down one of the walls, and all of his henchmen come through the hole in the wall, falling unconscious to the ground. Black Mass is shocked, and before he can react, Batman comes crashing through one of the walls and delivers a strong kick to Black Mass's face as the final confrontation begins.
Thank goodness Batman didn't stop at the gas station because that
Indeed.
that was looking very bad for Barbara.
Yes. Right at that moment, Scarecrow recovers consciousness and remembers the pain and agony that Black Mask put him through. With thought of revenge, Scarecrow transforms into the biggest WTF moment of this entire thing, the Scare Beast once again, and starts looking for Black Mask. His search takes him to the exit of the building where several police officers are terrified at the sight of this monster and they start shooting at random, killing some of their own members. Right. Batgirl and the others get sight of Scare Beast and decide that they must help, but since the police are after them as well, they could risk being attacked. Robin gets an idea and tells them to attack as soon as he creates a distraction. Just outside the building is the what is the mobile bat cave? Okay. Just outside the building is the mobile bat cave with Alfred and Nightwing inside. Alfred has just finished healing Nightwing's bullet wound on his leg, and Nightwing already wants to get out and help the others, but his attempt is quickly dismissed by Alfred, who threatens him with injuring his other leg if he doesn't stay quiet and stay put. Meanwhile, Batman and Black Mask are beating each other with sheer brutality, and Barbara tries to make them stop killing each other. However, Batman refuses to stop as he wants to end the Black Mask once and for all in his reign of terror. Barbara tries to remind him that Gotham still needs him because neither Robin or Nightwing are ready to take the mantle of the Bat. Batman thinks otherwise and he keeps fighting Black Mask, who is slowly losing the fight. Outside, Batgirl, Onyx, Tarantula, Catwoman attack Scarebeast at the same time, and before they are attacked by the police, Robin talks to the commander and explains that they are the only people capable of dealing with the monster and that he should give orders to the rest of the officers to stop attacking and let them beat the monster. And Robin promises that after they defeat him, they will promises, finger, you know, pinky swear, they'll surrender, turn themselves in. The commander agrees and gives the order to let them work, and they keep beating Scarebeast. As Batman and Black Mask give no sign of stopping their massacre, Barbara decides to end it all and activates a destruction sequence that starts detonating bombs all over the structure of the clock tower. Batman is almost finished with Black Mask, but Barbara makes him realize that since the destruction of the building is imminent and there's no easy way out, she is going to die unless he stops fighting and saves her from dying. The whole building starts crumbling and the fires reach the main room. Batman drops the beaten body of Black Mask and looks at Barbara, who's begging for him to save her, shedding a tear of desperation. A final explosion makes the clock tower collapse, and the people outside run away from the site as rubble and fire keep spreading around the place. Batman's shadow is seen going out of the building and taking a body with him. However, nobody else is looking. A few minutes later, the fire is extinguished, and there is only ashes. There are only ashes in the place where once stood the Gotham Clock Tower. Robin and Batgirl find themselves alone looking for the others, but they realize that they might already be gone, and they decide to do the same. One of the police officers tells Robin to keep his promise and turn himself in, but Robin refuses, telling him that he lied. Arturo Rodriguez approaches Barbara, who is lying nearby an ambulance and some firefighters, and he asks her how she managed to survive. And Barbara pretends that she doesn't remember how it happened and that she's very confused as to why Black Mask believed that her tech company could be the secret headquarters of Batman, who she also considers to be a very bizarre creature. Rodriguez then carries Barbara to a safe place. A few feet away, Batman is recovering from the feet when some police officers approach him and ask him to surrender. Batman tells him that there are hundreds of other casualties that need attention and that they shouldn't be wasting time with him. While Robin helps the firefighters in the rescue efforts, Batman wants to go and make sure that Black Mask didn't survive the explosion when he is contacted by Leslie Tompkins. But the intercom is too damaged to hear what she's saying, and all that Batman gets is that something's happening at her clinic concerning spoiler. Before leaving, Batman glances at Robin with guilt and sorrow. So says our writer of this wiki. At a
Yeah,
short time,
that's one
yeah, I know,
interpretation
seriously,
of
of what's gone on. After a short time later,
of what that panel's supposed to be,
yeah,
Batman's emotion.
yeah, mostly. Batman arrives at the clinic and Wesley tells him that Stephanie won't survive and that she has very few hours, really minutes, seconds. Leslie
Yeah.
takes Batman to Stephanie's room and leaves them alone. Stephanie looks very injured, of course, and is barely able to talk. And when she does, she blames herself again for starting the gang war, and she wants to know if Tim hates her, and she speaks about the baby she had a few years ago. Batman tells her that Tim actually adores her and that he would make sure that her baby doesn't miss anything in life. Finally, Stephanie asked Batman if she was given the role of Robin because of her merits and that if she was ever truly Robin. After listening from Batman, that all of it was true and she was actually Robin. Stephanie feels glad for being part of the legend of Batman and being Robin, even if it was short lived, and she decides that she must rest now. Stephanie closes her eyes forever, and tears come from her eyes as her heart stops beating. The next morning, Arturo Rodriguez reports from the ruins of the clock tower, the events of the previous night, and he also tells us, the peoples, that the war has finally stopped. He blames not only the criminals, but the vigilantes as well for not being present during their darkest hour, for all the losses and casualties, and for disappearing as soon as the situation calms down. Batman can't agree with him as Arturo doesn't know all the sacrifices that they have been through. Batman leaves the clinic, and before leaving, he tells Leslie that he and his group will always be present in every war that might come. Leslie doesn't speak a word and stares at the Batmobile as it goes away with guilt in her eyes. Do you think that's true? Is there guilt in her eyes? 2 days later.
Read war crimes.
Yeah, I know. 2 days later, several leaders of gangs and mob bosses have gathered in a building and are waiting outside of some important room. It's like in Hamilton, the room you want to be in, the room where it happens. They are given
One
instructions.
last time.
Okay. They are given
Come
they are given instructions to pledge loyalty and move on. As the doors open, all the gang leaders one by one approach Black Mask, would you believe, who is sitting on a big chair they recognize him as the uncontested boss of bosses in Gotham. The end, it says. And so I thought we were
Well,
done with
if it
part
isn't
five.
Black Mask,
Yeah, no,
sir.
seriously.
We
Okay.
listened to a lot of Hamilton during the road trip.
Oh, I bet you did. Question number one of many big questions since we're at the
Oh,
end
there's
here.
a lot of stuff this issue.
How big of a sacrifice was it for Barbara to blow up the clock tower? Number one. And number two, beg Batman to save her, basically.
Pretty bleeping big. That's her home. That's her base. And if you're somebody who's been through a situation like Barbara has, where like your life has fallen apart and you've had like a traumatic moment, destroying your own home is like, I don't know. And maybe this isn't a universal life experience, but like, I had a traumatic life altering moment, and some people listening have had too. And when rebuilding from those moments is hard. So, like, destroying your own home, it's a lot more than just like changing apartments after that. Like, that's pretty bleak. It's pretty big because not only that, like, she built her whole operations out of this too. Like, yes, she was Oracle before the clock tower, like, because it, there's no like single issue where like I'm moving into the clock tower now, unless it's like a flashback or secret. Like, there was just like an issue of Showcase. That's where we first see the clock tower. Like in Suicide Squad, she's just kind of in these like little rooms. Um, but either way, like, this is where the Birds of Prey became a thing. This is where like a lot of this stuff has been happening. This is the room where it happened. Take that, Black Mask and Aaron Burr and Lin-Manuel Miranda. The real room where it happened, and now the room's gone because Batman wouldn't let her finish a sentence, and he couldn't have gone there sooner. So yes, I'd say super big sacrifice.
And then what about begging Batman to save her?
You think begging's a sacrifice? Like, am I understanding the question correctly? Or
Begging him.
I don't think Barbara's too proud to beg. And I think it was less for her own sake and more for Batman's sake. She was begging Batman to save himself. And she knows that he's not going to listen to save himself, but he'll listen to save me. Because Batman's not going to let a friend die. Batman would let himself die, and he was going to do that in that moment. And this scene is like revisited in War Crimes. Like when I say revisit, it's like it's briefly discussed because fans had an issue with like, Black Mask is not, Lady Shiva. Why is Batman like thinking he's going to die in a hand-to-hand fight with Black Mask? Like, this isn't somebody that can beat Batman on a physical level. And they bring that up in this in War Crimes, is that, oh yeah, Batman was tired, he'd been up for days, like blah blah blah, he wasn't operating at his best. So that's why like Barbara was saying you two are going to kill each other, because in no other universe is Black Mask like without any weapons going toe to toe with Batman and like matching him on a martial arts level.
Yeah. I would only say, because I agree with you of, the purpose of why she's doing all of this and to save, but I think it is also a big character moment for her to ask someone else to save her because she very much is someone who,
Dependent
yeah, she's independent.
or in independence,
Yeah,
excuse me.
she wants to be self-reliant, and I think she does know her limitations, but she like pushes past them. But for this to be like, you need to save me, I think that that is kind of stepping back.
I will defer to you because you spend more time with the character than I do, but I feel like Barbara is not too proud to ask for help
Yeah,
when she needs it. She won't ask for help if she thinks it's something that she can do by herself. But unlike Batman, she's not so proud that she won't say, I need help if she gets to a situation where she actually does.
yeah. And I mean, also the fact that like what he has put her through this entire war games,
Yeah.
like there's that's really big too. Like she look at all of the she has to again help him out. Which is kind of nuts. So it's just the relationship between
She
these two are very interesting in this story.
and I briefly alluded to this in one of our previous episodes. Like you'll see the moment if you ever like look at the YouTube of I there's a moment where I remember that this is where the clock tower gets destroyed. You because you mentioned birds of prey. I'm like, oh, what happens to the birds of prey after? And I was like, oh, and you said, okay, there's something that's going to happen with birds of prey
Yeah.
because obviously this leads to a new status quo for birds of prey
Right.
because their headquarters is gone.
Yeah.
Like, and in fact, like the I don't think this is a spoiler to say because this is like an opening page, not like a storyline, but like literally like the next issue of Birds of Prey, it's like the birds are like outside of like the room clock tower, like looking at it as if like they just got back after war games. They're like, oh, well, clock tower's
What
gone.
now? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Barbara honestly needs to cut ties with Batman for a time.
That's part of what's happening next because of the whole like getting the Bat family out of Gotham. They like reinforce the point that like Batman can't call Oracle as much anymore because she's not in Gotham, which doesn't make sense to me because like, she doesn't have to be in Gotham to like be an information broker, but
Yeah.
either way,
I
that's
just, yeah. I
but
honestly think for health reasons that they need a break from each other.
there is going to be a follow-up discussion between them
Okay.
about spending time apart from each other.
Glad to hear it.
Mhm.
Where's Jim Gordon? I mean, this is all over the news. His daughter's face is on the news. Where is he?
I think that yes, realistically, we should be getting a reaction from him. And this isn't like a TV show where like you can't hire an actor to come in for like once because it's like budgetary things and screen time. I think you could have done a panel of like Jim like running at the end, like when Barbara like is talking to that cop, like, oh, I don't know what this was all like. You could have had Jim like going through the barricades, like, Barbara, are you okay? That's my
Yeah.
daughter. But I think that with everything going on, there wasn't enough real estate to show that and we just assumed that Jim saw it and was concerned and called Barbara afterwards or something. Or maybe he's passed out with some booze or whatever,
Oh my
like
gosh. This is not the Harley Quinn Jim. Plus
yeah.
isn't he on the mend? Isn't he better? I
It,
seem to remember he got
he
better.
is, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
He's on the or homeless cop.
Okay. Is it a believable lie about the tech company? I mean, we do know she has kind of the paper trail to believe it, but
I thought that she was a travel company at one point. That was her cover, but like
yes, that yeah, and the birds, yeah.
I think that because Batman like literally bursts in there, it does like it could make conspiracy theorists like raise their eyebrows, like, Batman did show up, but Batman's going to show up where there's trouble in Gotham anyway. And
Hmm.
because Black Mask was on live TV, it does show. Like, like one would assume that like Batman would show up wherever Black Mask was if he was on live TV. Uh, but there was no Batman stuff in that place. It was just like, and if people saw all the computers and she said, oh, yeah, I'm a tech company. And like, if they're thinking who's Batman's like, like headquarters person, and they just see like a girl in a wheelchair and they look her up and she's like a former librarian or whatever. And, depending upon if her stint in Congress is in continuity, they're probably going to be like, yeah, there's nothing here. This is a dead
Yeah.
end.
Constantly underestimated, my girl.
Yeah.
Explain this. Explain this to me. I'm showing
Yeah,
Scare Beast. Explain.
that was bleeping weird.
Do you know anything
uh
about this history, about this character? Because apparently it's happened before. Do you know anything about Scare
he
Beast?
was transformed by like another villain or penguin or
Oh
something.
boy.
And this was a thing that happened like for a little bit. I forgot about it. And then when I read this again, I was like, well, that was a freaking non sequitur. Like, and when you were like doing your like recap where the person like detailed every crevice of every page, I quickly like typed it into my phone to see if I was like, am I remembering this the way I thought? And like, yeah, there's like a few sections of Scarabees on like a few websites. Was I reading the books around this time? Yeah, but I don't really remember much of Scarabees. This isn't like when we were talking about Darla, and I gave you like Darla's whole like life story and like what happened to her afterwards, and like all this Tarantula Nightwing stuff,
But
or
Scare
Dick
Beast isn't
Grayson
worth
like
your time.
joining the mafia. Scarebeast, I'm like,
Mm.
this mine ain't no steel trap. Scarebeast escaped from that.
It's so very bizarre. I'm like,
But that
huh?
was that was a big WTF, and I think I even put something like that in my thing.
Yeah, I would agree. So I was wrong. I thought that Alfred had gotten Dick into the Batcave, but it's the mobile Batcave.
But he's going to be in the Batcave in the next issue of Nightwing, and it
Oh,
almost kind of implies that like he's been there since like the end of the last Nightwing, because he's like learning about like things like the continuity of Nightwing's weird, like I said.
yeah. Do you think Batman lied to Stephanie that it was real and she was Robin?
I don't think so because the way that the scene is set up from an emotional level, we're meant to believe that it's like genuine. That being said, it was, and we talked about this when we talked about Act One. It was a failure of Stephanie's time at Robin as Robin that like the reason why we never get Batman's thoughts on it is so that we can have this payoff where like he reveals it to the readers and to the Stephanie for the first time that yes, that's why. But during the actual storyline, he's mean to her, and Alfred says, "Are you just doing this to like tempt Tim to come back?" And Batman doesn't answer, and they do that to like set the expectation for the readers, and this is the payoff from that. But it's ultimately a poor payoff because like it doesn't come off as like genuine based on his past actions. Does the scene set it up as genuine? Yes. But if you read his past actions, you're like, what the heck? And the fact that you're asking, is this genuine, shows that it's kind of a failure of how they're doing this.
Yeah.
And this whole with Stephanie actual, like, this was like, yes, she was a real official Robin. There was still some back and forth on this among like DC as a company after this. Because I know that like people would say, "Oh, all three Robins," and then when Damien would show up, they'd say, "And the four official Robins." And when people would bring up Stephanie, I think at one point Dan DiDio said like, "Oh no, Stephanie wasn't actually really Robin. That doesn't count." And after this storyline, when people said, "Why doesn't Stephanie have a memorial case?" Nobody asked about the black guy Orpheus's memorial case, but that's none of my business. But anyway, when people asked about Stephanie's memorial case, somebody at DC, maybe the DO said, "Oh, she doesn't get one because she wasn't actually Robin."
Mm.
Which again, like you have editorial saying she wasn't actually Robin, but here Batman saying no, she was Robin.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's been a few changes, in the company's leadership over the years, and like Stephanie is acknowledged as an official Robin. They did that Robin 80th anniversary special in 2020, and Stephanie was listed as one of the Robins. We had the Robins miniseries a year or two ago, and Stephanie was one of the official Robins in that. So DC is acknowledging that she was a Robin, but despite what Batman says here and how it concludes the storyline, it was still very much not everyone could agree on thing.
Yeah, I guess because with how he is with her in this third act, like I want to give
Yeah.
him the benefit of the doubt. I think he was very much loving towards her. Probably the most that we've ever seen him be towards Steph in particular. But you always wonder, when someone's on their deathbed, I mean, you want to say everything positive, right? Does Tim hate me? No, of course not. He adores you, always has, and just like all these positive things to her. So that's why I wonder, like, what do you think? Is this a lie to benefit her because she is dying, or does he truly believe it? But perhaps he's the most honest he's ever been in these moments.
Yeah, and because I think he needs to be, because
Yeah.
there's no time left, you know. And I mean, he doesn't know that she's coming back in 2009
Yeah.
or
So,
2000 and whatever year that story was where she
yeah,
came back.
2009. Yeah. So then I have like several questions about this, right? So
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
at the moment, right? It just seems that Stephanie died of her wounds. We were warned about this by Leslie. Do you think that just this is okay? Do you think that it seems fair and realistic that she died? And I also put, did she need to die, I guess, for this story? So just looking at this.
It's the whole Jean Grey thing. Like when you say, does she need to die? Where like, um, when Chris Claremont wrote the original Dark Phoenix saga, he had Jean Grey like destroy a whole planet with like a group of with like lots of aliens living on it. And then the next issue, he was going to have her be like cured of being Phoenix and like basically like live in retirement. And Jim Shooter said, no, you can't do that. She like killed all these people. So like you need to, she has to like quote unquote pay for what she did. So whenever a hero's like responsible for a bunch of deaths, like there's, especially if it's a woman, there's kind of that attitude that like they either need to pay with their life or something else. And so did she, but that being said, nobody asked for Stephanie, like, to do the war games in the first place. Like, did she die? Like, did she need to die? Well, they didn't need to write her as like doing the war games so that they can justify killing her.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no, she didn't need to die.
Okay.
They could have made it so that Stephanie didn't do the war games and she didn't need to die. Or they could have made it that even after doing the war games, she decided to, maybe this drives her to like do some good. And maybe she changes her MO in some way to like give back to the city because she has those feelings of guilt. I don't know. So from a storytelling standpoint, this was like a 6-part question. So like I think I just answered one of them. What were the
Yeah, it's
other parts?
fine. Do you think that this is realistic that she dies?
She was tortured for a while. She bled out. There was internal bleeding. I'm not a medical doctor. I thought it was weird considering like she was on her 2 feet and like, it had been a few issues since Batman had found her. So I figured she was fine, but I don't question it too much. That being said, there's multiple retcons surrounding this scene because first, well, War Crimes wasn't the retcon. They wrote this with War Crimes in mind, and then when she came back, they revealed, oh, actually, something else entirely.
Yeah. And
So
at least it was seeded in when Leslie admits her, he's like, she might not make it.
yeah,
Her wounds are extensive. So if Leslie had said like she'll pull through, and then all of a sudden you'd be like, I'm sorry, what happened? Yeah. So if we think about the extraneous information that comes later, which you know more than I do,
yeah.
um,
I'm glad I don't have to dance around it as much as I thought I would.
yes. I still use the did she need to die? Um,
She didn't.
okay. So even with I don't know Leslie's motivations. So I guess that would be a spoiler if you told me. So maybe
Leslie
don't.
hates blondes.
Okay.
No, no, no.
So still like
You
she
better
didn't
watch out.
need what?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah, I'm
better watch
next
because
on
you're
the
blonde now.
list. There ain't no Lazarus pits where I live. So you don't think she
Tessa
need to die?
Ghoulie. Repeat
Oh,
that last
I was
part.
like, what do you say? Tessa
Tessa,
Ghoulie.
yeah,
Okay, yeah,
because you
yeah,
said
yeah.
the pits,
It's
and I
like
was
I
like, oh
don't
yeah,
know what he
oh,
just said, but then I processed it. So
okay.
you don't think she needed to die
No,
knowing what? Okay. Okay.
no. One thing I'll note about this scene too is that she says she has a baby girl. Prior to this storyline, the gender of her daughter was not known
Oh, interesting.
because
Okay.
when she gives birth, Tim is about to tell her, like, because she's unconscious, like she's like put under when she gives birth. And when she wakes up, Tim's like, "You're safe. The baby's safe. You have a beautiful baby." And she stops Tim and says, "No, I don't want to know. I don't want to know anything about that." Because, like, she thinks that the baby's doomed if it's with her, that because, like, she's Cluemaster's daughter, the baby's going to be drawn into this life of crime. So she says, "Give the baby up for adoption. Like, I don't want to know the gender. It's better this way." So at some point, she found out the gender, which either Leslie told her when she looked through the records, or in the intervening years since the birth, Stephanie got curious and looked it up and found out herself.
Gotcha.
But that was interesting to me when I read this at the time. Like,
Yeah.
oh, a daughter.
Yeah.
We still don't know. I mean, unless something happened in the last few months of Batgirls that I haven't caught up on, like, the daughter is still technically out there somewhere. We don't know the daughter's name.
Sure, she doesn't exist, just like Alicia's wife doesn't exist.
Well, we've been like bringing back pre-rebirth stuff, or pre New 52. Yes.
Does Batman look guilty there? And also, should Batman have told Cass and Tim that Steph was nearing her end?
Should have told everyone, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So Stella pointed to a panel, YouTubers, and I interpreted that panel of him like looking, like considering, should I tell Tim or not? Like, he's looking at Tim and deciding to like leave him in the dark. And that's one thing that I've said in the past that upsets me about the story, is that Stephanie dies and she and Tim never got to make peace.
Yeah.
They each of them, like, Stephanie went to her grave thinking that Tim cheated on her with Darla, when really Tim was rejecting Darla's kiss. And Stephanie died without Tim ever finding out the real reason why, like, she was mad at him. Tim doesn't know why she was mad at him. Tim doesn't know that he saw the Darla kiss, and Tim doesn't know that, like, why she went to become Rob. Like, this is a discussion that they can never have, and that Batman robbed them of having. Now, they've probably had it since then because she's alive, but like in real life, when somebody dies, those are moments that you can't get back. Batman took that away from Tim, and that gets me upset. I had not even considered what you said about telling Cass too until just now. I'm like, that's true, because Cass was close with Stephanie.
And Cass knew. Cass of all the Bat family knew.
Yeah, I think that if she could have died with them all by her side,
Yeah. Catwoman.
But
I mean, we saw how big
Catwoman could wait in the waiting room, like
I know, but the fact that yeah, but there were emotional moments between the two of them.
There were, but if Stephanie's got minutes to live,
yeah, definitely Bat, Steph, and
yeah, let her have like 20 seconds with Cass, 20 seconds with Tim, and like if you had Catwoman in there, then like you have to divide it up more, and it gets messy. Like, she knew Catwoman for like like 2 days, like.
So I guess
it was a nurturing relationship, but like, she should have had closure with Cass and Tim.
People that she loved, yeah. So I guess he has best interest, but it's just like in the Batman way, he gets things kind of confused of like what should actually be done.
And in a way, this is kind of a human moment for Batman, because I'm mad at him for doing this, but like I see it as a human moment of him like making a mistake, thinking like, I don't want to like put this on Tim right now, and I don't want to upset him. I don't want to complicate this. Like, let's. I don't want to get his head out of the game. So let me just let him do this right now. But it is. I mean, the more I think about it, like, and of course, obviously, like I said, there was a recent death in my orbit, and that raises a lot of questions over like moments that you can never get back. Right. So like, I'm kind of applying some of those emotions here, and I'm like, yeah, Batman really robbed Tim of those moments. Of course, the difference is, it's a comic, so like you do get those moments because Stephanie came back. But if this story is the end of Stephanie, like, Tim will never know why she was mad at him.
Yeah.
And Stephanie will never know that Tim did not cheat on her. She has to take that to her grave.
And does Tim find out that he could have spent some time with Stephanie at her end, but Batman prevented that? And is there a resentful reaction to it?
I remember the moments where Tim finds out. I don't remember him being resentful at Batman, but I remember the moment where he finds out.
That's interesting because I feel like I've seen other media where this happens and the other person who has been like locked out of that last moment is very upset at the person who prevented that from
If
happening, which makes
if
sense.
if God forbid something happened to our naked friend, and I like told you like, oh yeah, it was a few hours ago, and I knew, and I didn't tell you to when you could have gone to the hospital, you would rightfully be upset at me.
Yes. Yes. I was gonna say they could be friendship ending.
Oh God.
There would be there we would have to take a break. It would take me a long time, I think, to
Man, I mean,
forgive
let's hope Donovan doesn't die. But if Donovan did die, like I, I would not keep you in the dark about it.
No, yeah, yeah.
What situation would we even be in where like it would happen that way? Okay, no
That
more
he's with you.
hypothetical.
Let's not
Yeah, like
catastrophize,
okay,
man.
no more
You on roller
hypothetical.
coasters and you in podcasts doing things. Does
What do I do on a
Leslie,
roller coaster?
because you said, what happened if I died right here, right next to you?
Oh, at Busch
Remember? Yeah, Busch
Garden.
Gardens. Yeah. And I was like, could you please stop? Does she look guilty to you?
I don't know what she's supposed to be.
Okay, because our
Like
writer of the DC Wiki, I believe so.
yeah, there's a lot of people reading. I mean, and this is no offense to the DC Wiki writers. Like, you kind of have to read into your own things here. Like, it's when you read this with the context of war crimes, then you're like, oh, he feels guilty, you know. And then of course we have retcons from like when
Yeah.
Stephanie comes back. Man, we're gonna have a whole discussion when Stephanie, after like during war crimes of like how Stephanie's the true circumstances behind Stephanie's death, how that fits in with the circumstances behind her return. Because honestly, the whole thing is a big like mess that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Um, did Batman lose?
Yeah, I'd say so. Two of his allies are dead. The GCPD is now against him. His surviving allies have been driven from Gotham. The clock tower is destroyed, and the gangs are now unified under Black Mask.
Yeah.
It's not a good situation.
No.
The weird thing is when the clock tower is like destroyed, he like says something like the gang war is over, and I'm like, how? Like what? No, like
Yeah.
did you just
He says
announce
it
it
to
or something?
Leslie. Yeah. It's
He's
all
like, well,
over, but we'll
it,
be here for the next one.
it's like well, how? Like everyone was still like fight like because Black Mask like body disappeared. Like that doesn't mean that gang war's over.
Yeah. He should have learned too, but Black Mask fell from a building and didn't die. Batman should know better than to just
But
assume he's
even
dead.
if like Black, just because they were all united under Black Mask, wouldn't they be fighting each other again like they were? Or like, I mean, I guess is he saying it's over because like they all got together under Black Mask? Like, so technically, then the gang war's been over.
That's
It's really
interesting.
weird because he just like Black Mask body disappears. He's like, well, that's over now, and it's like, hold on, aren't we still like chaos around every corner, like gang members stabbing each other in the streets and like
Yeah.
high school students like having to hide and stuff like isn't this still like uh, it, they didn't really land the plane too well with this one. I
No.
hate to say.
I would agree. If a fan wanted to pick up this story and
Oh
only
boy.
this story, so act one, two, and three, um, and this is it, right? It ends like this. What have they learned?
That Batman should put a password on his like war games plans when he and when he fires his Robins, like stay in the Batcave until they leave the Batcave. Don't just like walk out and leave and like with your computer right there and your like thumb drive out with your war game plans or whatever he did. Like I there's a lot to learn. Don't talk over your friends.
It's such a
Um
yeah. It's such a weird ending because It's almost the most anticlimactic ending I think I've ever read.
The war game is over, as
The war
Batman's.
game Steph is dead, but Black Mask is still like nothing has been accomplished. Like Black Mask
Yeah.
he's in power and it's like Batman thinks that it's over, but it's really not. It was like such a weird ending. It was like going to see Across the Spider-Verse, and I didn't realize that it was a part 2 or a to be continued situation. So I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, what's gonna happen? It's called like to be continued. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? So when it says the end, I'm like, I'm sorry, what? It's just like, what?
Did I did I tell you what the 9-year-old said when I took him to see it?
No.
When it said to be continued, he stood up in like the seat he was in, and he shouted, "Hey, I was watching that."
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. Well, I was reading this and this is how it ended up.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I just don't know. I mean, what has changed, I guess? So Stephanie died, Black Mask is head. What other status quo from this story, not the epilogues, mind you, what has actually changed from like the beginning to the end?
Well, the Black Mask is kingpin of crime.
Right?
Batman has lost 2 of his allies. He's no longer.
Who are the
He
two?
is now a he is
Oh,
now a
Steph
fugitive.
and Orpheus.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
he's now a fugitive from that JCVD.
Again.
Tim is Robin again.
Yep.
And there was and he's like he has a he's no longer an urban legend. He's been on camera.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And the clock tower is destroyed.
Yeah, yeah. Clock Tower's destroyed.
Okay. Okay.
And we'll never forget the Scare Beast.
I mean, are
Oh,
those
you know what?
significant
Oh,
changes?
Batman lost 3 allies. Charlie, poor Charlie.
Yeah, poor old Charlie. Yeah. Are those significant enough changes to warrant this story?
Does anything like that's a hard question to answer because like what warrants a story? You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
it's like technically anything can warrant a story because that's what stories are. Like things happen in them. I'd say that that's a lot of significant stuff. Like 2 of Batman's allies ending, like his relationship with the GCVD, changing, and the allies getting driven from Gotham. It's an epilogue thing, but like this plants the seeds for it. Like there's enough here to justify a crossover. I would just say that like this could have been 2 months, like Contagion and Legacy and Cataclysm instead of 3. Like
Yeah.
3 months, this got padded, especially like some of those Act 3 stories. We had the subplot pages with like Black Mask that were kind of interesting, but otherwise like Robin fighting Double Dare, like that was kind of superfluous. Catwoman fighting the guy she was fighting, that felt superfluous. The subplot pages were all right, but like I was like, okay, we're kind of like spinning our wheels here.
Yeah. I mean, that was my final point is just the length. I agree that I think we could have cut out 8 issues from this.
Yeah, I agree.
But
Now, as a returning reader, I liked that it was long because like I liked having a new book to read like each week, as part of like the storyline, which like I think a year or two from when I read this was when there's a regular 52, which kind of like scratched that same
oh
itch,
yeah,
which
yeah, yeah. Yep, the first weekly. That
yeah.
was good. Countdown wasn't very good, but
Yeah,
52 was
I
good.
remember I used to say on Crawlspace, I'm the only one that read Countdown all the way through, and I'd
I
be
read
thinking,
it.
I read it as well. It was
And
horrible.
then Trinity came out after that, which
Oh,
apparently
I couldn't do Trinity after Countdown. It was
yeah, I
like,
know, it was like too many weekly series. Too
yeah,
many.
and I well, I like Weekly Sid, but it's like, and that's why I got excited when we did Batman Eternal because it was like almost weekly,
Yeah. Thrice, wasn't it?
but yeah.
And I guess we
Oh,
were prepared for it by Spider-Man with Dan Slott. That was 3 times a week,
do
wasn't it?
do 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 do.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this issue or War Games Act 3 as a whole?
The only other note that I had, and I feel like it's an anticlimactic note to make my last note of this, but like just because we didn't discuss it, but like at the beginning when Batman and Tarantula are like looking at the TV report of like Oracle at gunpoint, like Tarantula says something like, "Oh no." Like in my head, I'm thinking like I'm sorry, but wasn't that you that was trying to kill her a few months? And I understand for story reasons why she's the one saying, "Oh no," now, but it was just like, in my head, I'm thinking like, that's quite a switch, Miss Tarantula,
Yeah,
because you just tried to kill her not too long ago. But
very
okay,
true. Very true. What would
I
you,
forgive
yeah?
Tarantula. She's trying to do good now,
Yeah.
and she didn't deserve the misogyny that she got
No. No,
from
and
the
she is
reader.
caring for her people in this particular act. So
Exactly.
you have to give her some props there.
Mhm.
What would you give Act 3 as a grade?
Oh, it's hard to grade because like I want to give it something really, really, really low because like of the egregiousness of the whole, Stephanie of it all and everything and some of the stuff. But at the same time, I feel like giving something too low is like mean because there's worthwhile stuff here. Um, Remind me what the grading system is like
Out of
out of
10.
out of 10.
Out of
I'd
10,
say 4 out of 10 is
flatlines.
fair.
4 out of 10.
Yeah, this is it's weak, but the 4 is because there's enough in there that it gets those 4 points. There's like
Yeah.
enough worthwhile, but like the bad stuff is so bad that like you lost those 6 points.
I think I would give it a 5 out of 10. Flatlines. What would you give War Games as a whole?
Oh, as a whole, maybe a 5 or 6 out of 10, somewhere between the 5 and the 6. Like,
Yeah,
I don't want to go too high because like just the Orpheus stuff is like just so egregious, but
sure. And the
there was
torture.
some good art in here. There was some good moments,
Yeah.
like that. I mean, as uncomfortable as it was to read in the year 2023, the school shooting issue was very well done.
Yeah. Yeah, I would almost recommend read Act 1 of War Games and don't read anything else. Just do a synopsis. Act 1, I still think Act 1 was pretty good. I was like, oh, I don't know why people don't like this. This seems fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would
Here
agree.
we
Probably,
are, two
but
months
yeah,
later.
I know. And at 12:48 in the morning.
We've been in the war games,
Yeah,
Stella.
yes. Yeah, I would agree with you. Maybe a 5 or a
Oh my
6.
God, it is 12:48.
Yes,
I
I
remember
know.
you said, I
It's
just
early
want to
now.
make sure we're not recording at midnight. And I was thinking, we're not going to be recording until midnight.
No, I knew I was like 12:31. Man, we're gonna get this. Okay. Any other thoughts? Act 3.
Not that I didn't already cover in the notes.
Okay, so we'll be back in 2 months and we'll do the epilogue and some miscellaneous and then war crimes, and I guess we'll have some issues there. But I'll at least have a break. Maybe I'll forget all about this and then I'll come back on
Well,
time.
and at least War Crimes is a manageable like 4 issues,
Yes.
and
Yeah, and
because
you
it's
wanted to do it tonight. You're insane. It would have been like 2 a.m. when we would have finished. And I
you
have
said I'm
work.
not doing 12 issues.
I have 3 jobs. One
Oh
of
my
them being
God.
my own school. One of them being my own school, but it's practically a
I,
job.
I didn't even mention that I had a toddler all weekend the last
Yeah.
2 days, so I
See?
was like so sleep deprived.
Trying to kill us both.
I know.
Okay, now for some listener emails as we wrap up this episode. All of them are comments on, because I don't think I have any actual emails. Episode 236 on part 1. Former BFF Shayna said she wasn't expecting to get demoted, and I did respond that there are always consequences to our actions. So lesson learned, maybe, maybe not. Part 2, though, you will be interested to hear this from her Bagels After Midnight, aka Right Round, aka Harry.
Okay, Harold.
Yes. I love how Josh put it, quote, think, if this was Batman, if this was Green Arrow or Nightwing, how would this scene be written? End quote. Realistically, Batman would break under torture, as still a set of characters in general. It has to be either or. Male characters appear weak in distressing situations, or female characters appear not weak. At that point, it's an issue of what we're learning as readers and the devil's advocate position to the dragon tattoo problem, that it isn't necessarily problematic for female characters to be sexually assaulted because sexual assault happens in real life. only ignores what men are learning from seeing Invincible Batmans and James Bonds. I think it depends on the story, and from what I'm hearing of War Games, it sounds like it might have been better to have Stephanie not appear quote unquote weak in that instance. If the story requires that she does, it may be more realistic and even help define a different kind of strength, but it wouldn't be a story I'd be interested in reading. But torture was so 2000s anyway. I wonder if modern Big Two comics even have this dilemma. Do you think they would torture
Um,
someone nowadays?
I can't recall any recent instances, but it's also because of, the time of night. And I'm not reading every comic that's out there. But I mean, I think that, comics are in a lot better position than they were. I'm not the best person to speak of this because I was about to say, well, comics are a lot less misogynistic than they were, like years ago. But I'm like, yes, me, a white male in his 30s, like saying that, like I can't speak to it because there's things that I won't see because there's blind spots that I have because of my privilege.
Because you're a
People
weirdo.
listening, you SJW, Josh, you liberal SJW, but realistically, like I know that as someone with my place in the world, I might not notice something that's sexist against women.
Yeah.
It might completely go past me.
In
I mean,
response to,
well,
yep.
sheesh, we just had the death of Miss Marvel, which was like really weird.
Yeah. Not even in her own book.
Not and
Not
and
even
and
in her
like
friend's book.
and in the press release about it, it was like really like insensitive. It was like she's been a great supporting character for Spider-Man, and it's like supporting this is the first like Muslim American Marvel superhero.
Yeah.
She had her
Yeah.
own title. Like, don't call her a supporting character.
Let's sigh. Um,
Let's say indeed.
yeah. I will say in response to this, Harry, and other people, they should read The Power by Naomi Alderman to see what it's like on the flip side of things. I think that would be a great investigation. I'm like a parrot how many times I have to mention that particular book and the themes. But anyways, no one listens to me. One person will at some point, I hope, and then I can chat.
Isn't that the book that Donovan was supposed to read and you watched
Oh
Steven Universe?
my gosh. Yes. Yes. And he didn't. So I don't have to watch Steven Universe.
I think he started to at one point. I
Yeah,
don't
he's
know.
like 20 pages in. I got that for him in like 2017. 6 years is no excuse. That is no excuse. Anyways, I think
You'll have to
that's
do
it.
what I did to get him to watch Raya because I tried to get him to watch Raya the Last Dragon and I basically like harassed him until he did. And then every time he watched like another movie, I would like say, "Why not Raya? Why didn't you watch Raya?"
Well, every time I see him, like, oh yeah, what about The Power? He doesn't care. He don't care. He only cares about flipping pizzas. Okay. That's it.
If
Remember, you can.
someone only knew Donovan by like our descriptions of him, what would they think of this human
I
being?
don't know. I thought
they,
about
they would think
Donovan
like is he like a nudist that like just like is constantly throwing pizzas at roofs?
throwing
Like,
pizzas. They give him extra tips because of his body.
oh,
Domino's. I think it's Domino's. Now you can just drop a pin in on a map and Domino's has to find you. So you could be out in the middle of nowhere, ask for a pizza, and Domino's has to find you out with their GPS. Could you imagine Donovan doing that?
I'm not a fan of those drop the pin things
I know.
because those are very inaccurate. Because I've done Uber as a driver, and as a
Ooh.
driver, and anyone who listens to BTO, if you ever do Uber, do not use the pin. Just type in your address because when you use the pin, it goes by your like satellite
Yeah.
and it'll put you like 3 or 4 buildings away sometimes. And then you yell at your Uber driver saying, "You're not where I put the pin." And it's like, actually, I'm exactly where the pin was put.
Yeah.
The pin was just in the wrong place. But if you're at like, Chili's, type in Chili's and it will tell Uber to take us to have me look for you at Chili's, not to look for you 3 buildings away where you actually put the pin. So when you say like, "Oh, Pete Domino's let you do the pin," I'm like, there's going to be a lot of people yelling at their delivery drivers for things that are not their fault now, saying, "You put my pizza at the wrong house."
Yeah. The ad looked insane. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank goodness I'm not a delivery driver. I feel very bad for them. Everyone's so happy, like, look, we've appeared, because they float down from the sky. I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is
Oh
terrible.
my gosh.
Finally, literature recommendation. Did you read or listen to anything on your 11 day road trip?
Oh my god, I couldn't read. I mean, we listened to a lot of Hamilton,
Okay.
um and I heard a lot of songs that like I hadn't listened to from that show in years that I was like, oh. And I thought of you because when I listened to the Skylar Sisters song, I was just remembering San Diego in like 2017. Yeah, you sang that song to me in bed after we sang You'll Be Back
I don't really know
You.
that song too much, except for the sisters. Work,
Yeah.
work.
You did it like out of nowhere to like get a reaction out of us. You said you were very animated, like Eliza and Peggy.
Biggie.
Look around, look around. Let's see, reading now. Reading and literature. It's been so busy.
Yeah.
I had a toddler this weekend. I read Goodnight Moon,
There you
so
go.
like,
Yeah, there you go.
and we watched The Land Before Time, and he reenacted the movie in the car ride for like the
Ooh.
next day. Yeah,
Which one?
the
20?
oh, the
Just the
good
first one.
one, the first one.
Yeah.
I'm not
Them.
I'm not showing a toddler those stupid sequels.
Okay.
Like the good one.
Okay.
BTO
Well,
listeners,
yes.
if would is there a good Land Before Time sequel?
Yeah. Come back at us. Let us know.
Mhm.
So I read Call Me by Your Name by Andre Aciman for the second time for the Required Reading podcast with Tom, and that is out now, so you can go check it out. Lots of homoeroticism and peaches. Out of the Shadows, which is a High Republic novel by Justina Ireland. It was okay. It was okay. Banned Book Club by Kim Hyun Suk, Ryan Estrada, and Ko Hyung Ju, which takes place in South Korea in the mid 80s, and sort of a time of paranoia and reporting on other people, and just activism, and trying to I guess show people what's actually happening and try to change things and get rid of their leadership. But I recommend that. That'll be on the next required reading, which will be in September. Find Me, which was the sequel, kind of sequel, to Call Me by Your Name, which I actually liked, I think, a little bit more than Call Me by Your Name. I felt the themes of fathers and sons was really interesting, and you get to you follow Elio's father, and then Elio as he conducts another affair with an older gentleman, and then Oliver, and then it's Oliver and Elio at the very end. Finding Me by Viola Davis. I give that 5 stars. I highly recommend listening to it on audiobook, since she reads it. Um, Fascinating. I had no idea these details of her life, and how she grew up. And I love her husband and how she represents him. It's pretty hilarious, and he just seems like the best guy. And then I read A Haunting in Venice, which by Agatha Christie, which is going to be, oh well, technically it's called Halloween Party, but this is what the film is going to be, so that's why I read it. And then I finished with The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay, and it's hard for me to explain what that's about. It takes place in the start of and really the height of the AIDS crisis, and follows this one character, Yale, and then in 1984 and kind of increases, and then in 2015 someone who's really close with Yale looking for her daughter. So it's hard for me to like tell you what the actual plot is. I mean, you're seeing lots of friends die. It's not an uplifting novel by any means, but I thought it was pretty good. I think that's it for me. um would you like to pimp yourself out?
Oh
Jump in.
the popverse.com. I have
Mhm.
content on there every week, and dc.com, DC's official website. I got content on there every week as well. So that is fun. That is what I am currently up to in between naps and lots of fun trips. If you're going to be at, let me get my convention schedule
Oh my
up.
gosh. Well, you're
Yeah,
going to
Stella's,
BGSU in September.
yep.
You're going to go to New York Comic Con in October.
That's two. Let's see if you.
You're going to Dragon Con in
Ooh,
September.
you got 3 out of the 4. Okay. All right. So here's my schedule. August 31st to November 4th, I will be at Dragon Con in Atlanta.
Through November 4th.
Oh, September 4th.
You're there for
Like,
months.
guys, it's
It's
1:01
a.m.
It's 1 in the morning. and I'm gonna say for the third or fourth time this podcast, I had a toddler all weekend.
Yes,
My
yes.
brain is basically mush. Um, Dragon Con Atlanta, I'll be on a few panels, including a Batman Nightfall one with our friend Michael Bailey. Um, September 16th through September 17th, I will be at Uncanny Experience in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's going to be an X-Men convention. That looks like it's going to be pretty cool. So that's just a quick weekend thing I'll be going to. And then September 29th through September 30th, I will be at, as well as our naked friend and possibly a few other surprises. Um, yeah, another mutual friend of ours might be there. That might surprise you, Stella. I don't know if I should say their name.
I know who it is.
It rhymes with black.
Yep.
Okay. Spider-Man and Pop Culture Conference. Stella and I did the Batman one with Donovan years ago, and it's still my lock screen because it's me, Stella, Donovan, and Ben. It's like, oh, it's a combination of all these people who I love and like that I don't get to see at the same time in the same place very often. So it's still, even though nobody looks the same as they do in that picture now. And then October 12th through the 15th, I'll be at New York City Comic Con in, you guessed it, New York, New York.
New York. There you go.
Mm-hmm. One day I'll convince Stella to go to one of these again. Evidently, the one that she could have actually gone to, I didn't tell her about. So
that's correct.
Our friendship
C2E2.
was in tatters
C2E2.
for a whole 6 seconds.
Yeah.
Until we were fine.
That is correct. Yeah. BGSU was a consideration. I just didn't have time to put together that thing, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to promise something and then renege. But I had a good plan. For what I was going to do. But
they might let you do something last minute if you feel like it. But I feel like with 3 jobs, you don't have the time.
Stella doesn't have the time now. Plus, I'm going back up to Cape Cod to run a race. So, and that's in October. So, can't really take off much from work because I don't get paid for my time off. So. Okay, well, send any questions or comments to backrolltheoracle@gmail.com. Like the show on Facebook or follow it on Twitter at backrolltheoracle. Subscribe to the show on YouTube for an uncut version where I make gestures and Josh bleeps or doesn't bleep himself. Follow the Batman Universe on Facebook and Twitter as well, and support the Batman Universe by subscribing to Patreon. Once again, thanks to Mile High Comics for sponsoring Backroll the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. And until next time.
Fly on, Babs lovers.